What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down some very important data coming out for tomorrow and why it's going to be an absolutely massive day as we have CPI and the FOMC meeting all coming out on the same exact day. So I'm going to break down what factors are affecting these pieces of data, what could be playing out for tomorrow, what you should be watching for on the charts. Let me first mention that I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon, in just about 1 week from now. Anyways, when it comes to the overall market, I just want to say that right now the charts look very bullish. SPY is pumping like crazy, so is the QQQ. Nvidia is holding up very well, and so is Apple. Tesla is showing some weakness, and the other stocks are still kind of within their ranges. But for the most part, the market's holding up and pumping very, very nicely. But just because technicals are bullish, it does not guarantee anything for tomorrow, because with tomorrow coming out, we have CPI and FOMC. So I want to break down what the data tells us about CPI and what you should be watching for moving forward. So with CPI, I just want to make it very, very clear that the last time CPI came out, everything was aligned with expectations and the market actually liked it. This time around, things are a little bit more nuanced because of the fact that when it comes to core CPI, we're expecting it around 0.3%, which is close to what we saw from before. But year over year, we're expecting 3.5 to 3.6%, the same thing as before, something very close to that. For all items CPI, however, month over month, we're expecting 0.1%, which is close to expectations. And year over year, we're expecting 3.4%, which is close to what we saw from before. So based off this data and based off what I'm seeing right here, I want to show you guys something very important. We actually have this chart right here, which gives us CPI versus crude futures. And this actually gives us more insights on what CPI could end up looking like. So looking previously, you guys could see ever since the last 20-30 years, this has been actually showing a very, very high correlation, and this correlation has been a lot more profound over the last couple of years especially. So notice how back in 2020 crude dropped alongside CPI when the market was rallying. Then we started to see them climbing as the market started declining in 2022. They ended up peaking together, then they came down together. We saw a little spike in the overall crude before we ended up seeing inflation doing the same thing. Then they came down together. Now they're kind of like stagnant, coming down a bit together. But here's the most important thing. So CPI is most definitely affected by previous data. And because of that, we could actually look at previous data looking at crude futures to determine what CPI could end up being. So when you look at April crude was at 84. That's what crude oil futures price was at. And then CPI was at 3.36%, right? If you look at that, what happened afterwards was in May, we actually saw crude futures drop to about 78.59, so a little bit of a dip. And the same thing is also happening in June. You can see 75.63 is what we're getting. And also gas prices are actually dropping a bit right now relative to before. Not saying they're cheap or anything. I'm just saying that they're a little bit lower than what we saw back in like April, back in like earlier this year. So from what I'm seeing, we're seeing crude futures drop, and this tends to be heavily correlated with CPI. This suggests that there's a high probability that CPI for all items, so that's accounting for energy, is going to be in line with expectations, if not lower. So we're going to likely get a decent CPI overall. However, the latest pieces of data that came out when it comes to the ISM manufacturing data, that was showing us with new orders and prices going up that there is a risk of core CPI being a little bit on the hotter end. So I think this is my prediction that all items CPI is going to be close to expectations, if not decent. That's a good sign for the markets, but I'm not too certain about core CPI. I'm not too sure about this, guys. This might be a little hot, if not aligned with expectations. I'm just not 100% sure, so I can't say anything about this. So I would be very, very careful. We're basically expecting 3.6 to 3.5% for year over year for core. Let's hope it's somewhere around there, if not below that. If it is, the market's going to continue to rip even higher. And then on top of this, I just wanted to say that the CPI data report is going to come out, and then at 2 o'clock p.m., we have the Fed interest rate hike decision coming out tomorrow, not to mention the FOMC economic projections. That's going to be very important too. Now, just know that as of right now, there's a 99.4% chance the Fed is going to give us basically a skip in the rate hike for this year, not this year, this month, excuse me, for the month of June. And they're most likely going to do that, in my opinion. But the question is, what is the projections report going to give us? Are we going to see 3 potential cuts for the year, or are we going to see 2 of them? That's going to be very, very important. We'll be watching that very carefully. This is going to be heavily dictated by all this data. And then on top of all of that, So the market's going to be going berserk through all of this data. Then we have Jerome Powell coming at 2:30. He's going to be giving a speech. So we have so much coming out tomorrow. It's going to be a very wild day. And I'll keep you guys updated on everything that ends up coming out. But that's what's going to be happening. Right now, the market is quite neutral. We're kind of in the middle right now. We'll see if the market ends up getting a dip or not. That's going to be very key for how things end up moving, or if the market continues to squeeze and remains greedy. Market momentum is currently extremely greedy as of right now. We're also starting to see the puts and call option positioning at greed. We're seeing a little dip right over here, which suggests that we're starting to see some puts being closed, more calls being bought. Market volatility is also kind of going up a little bit as we're starting to see the VIX shift. It's currently neutral, so we'll see if that changes. And besides that, I'm not really seeing anything else that's too crazy. Indicators are kind of in the middle as of right now. Now, for earnings, last thing I'm going to talk about is this. If you guys wanted to pay attention to these, this is what we have for earnings. We just had Oracle announce their earnings. Tomorrow we have a few more. All of it's very, very minor. Anyways, let's just focus on the charts now. What do I see for the market going forward, in my opinion? Well, if I were to ignore all the data, okay, if we throw all the data out the window and we just look at the charts, the answer is bullish. SPY is bullish. QQQ is bullish. Nvidia looks bullish. Apple looks bullish. The market is looking bullish, guys. We're continuing to rip right now. It looks very optimistic for the next CPI report. However, technicals, although they're not everything, you shouldn't solely trade based off technicals. The daily candlestick of SPY looks very bullish, so it does suggest upsides looking more probable. But this could also be a trap. Nothing is guaranteed when you have a crazy day like CPI and FOMC. So, in my opinion, technicals suggest that SPY wants to break its all-time high and get very close to 540. That looks more probable to me based off technicals. But if CPI is hot and we get something completely unexpected, because you don't always know what's going to happen, right? If that were to happen, we could easily see this actually flip in the opposite direction. So if we were to see something like that, I'm going to actually fix this for 1 second. If we were to get a little system where CPI ends up hotter than expected and we get a rug pull, we could be retesting our 20 EMA back down to 533. And to be bearish, you want to see us lose basically 531.5. If we get all the way down to 533, we could still bounce again. But if we lose 531.5, we are going to see a big dip on SPY, and SPY is going to get a rug pull. If we hold where we currently are and continue to push, I think we could be on our way for 540. Right now, the upside looks a bit more probable looking at technicals, but it also depends on CPI and what Jerome Powell says. But just know that technicals do suggest more upside is coming, so we will wait and see just to be safe. For Nvda, we are range trading right here, back and forth and back and forth. We have this resistance up here around 122, and then we also have support right here around 118. We will see where we end up holding right here if we lose support or not. If we get a hot CPI, or at least for core CPI, I think that's the main thing that I'm going to be focusing a lot more on. If core CPI is hotter than expected, then we're going to likely see this dip all the way down towards the 118 area, if not lower. If we get a decent CPI in the market pumps, we're going to be looking for 123. As of right now, Nvidia is just in the middle, so it's very indecisive, but it's holding very, very well. It has a lot of momentum as we're holding our 20 EMA, excuse me. For Bitcoin is looking a little bit more bearish, technically speaking, because we have a nice double top like structure and we're actually starting to reject right here. We need to reclaim 67,788. If we reclaim that level, it could be pushing back to 69,000 or higher. If we fail to reclaim that, we're going to be looking for a big rejection. As of right now, the trend's a little bit weaker as we have a double top, so we'll have to give Bitcoin some time just to see how things end up moving. For Tesla, unfortunately, Tesla lost key support. And I called this out, guys. I told everyone that Tesla has a range. If we lost 173, I would turn bearish. If we broke past 180, I would turn bullish. Well, we lost 173 and we got a big rejection. Tesla came all the way down to 168 because of a new lawsuit filed by the DMV after what a California judge just ruled. So that's not the best of news for Tesla. We're looking kind of weak. If CPI causes a rebound, though, Tesla could rebound back up to 173. If we break that, I'll be looking for 176. If we continue to reject, watch 168 as critical support. If we lose that, we're going to be coming all the way down to 162. This is what the levels look like. I actually have them right over here. So watch these resistance and support levels. We have 171, 173, and then 176 is the main resistances. We have supports all the way down here at 170, then 168. If we lose this, we'll be dipping down lower to like 165, then 162.5. Overall, Tesla's showing some weakness compared to the market, but it depends on the CPI data. So I'll be watching for that moving forward. For the triple Q, we're looking bullish overall. We're looking very, very bullish. We've broken the all-time high all over again. If you look at this, it's just continuing to rip upwards. So we have 468 as resistance. If we break this, I think we're going up to 470, then 472. Overall, it is a bullish structure. If we're bearish, we'll be dipping back down to 466. Losing that, we would see a big drop all the way down to 462. However, overall, the QQQ is more bullish. It's favoring the upside more. It looks like it wants to push higher from a technical standpoint. But like I said before, it depends on CPI. It depends on what CPI gives us, so we just have to wait and see. Apple's also on fire. The share price has been up over 7% for the day, absolutely exploding. We have 208 as resistance, 210, then 215. We have support at 204. If we lose that, we'll be looking at 202, then 200. Overall, Apple is bullish. It looks bullish overall. One could argue it's kind of overextended, but we'll see how it reacts to CPI. CPI will be the next big catalyst for it, so we'll see if that causes a big push or not. So we'll give this the time it needs and see how things end up moving from here. With that being said, guys, that is it for the main five I typically talk about. Now I'm going to be talking about the rest of the tickers in a much quicker manner. So NEO has a double top leg structure and a rejection, also an inverted cup and handle. I think it's going to come down to fill the gap down here around the low fours. However, with CPI, we could get a temporary bounce before we drop down, or we could just drop down from here. It is looking more bearish overall. For Palantir, we are looking a little bit more bullish. Technically speaking, we have a cup and handle. I could be looking for a push all the way up towards the 24.75 area if we are bullish, if we do hold above this resistance. If we get a rejection, I'll be looking for a move down to 23. If we lose that, we'll be dipping all the way down to 22. But in my opinion, Palantir is looking more bullish, technically speaking. Now, technicals are just one factor. It depends on CPI, of course. They do suggest upside, but just to be safe, watch both supply and demand, and watch support just to be safe. For super micro, we're looking a little bit weaker technically speaking. It looks like it wants to dip down to 754 from the technicals. And if that breaks, we'll be coming all the way down to about the 740 area. So it looks more bearish overall. I've been saying this for quite some time about super micro. We also have a head and shoulders, but it also depends on CPI if we get a temporary bounce or not. If we get a big bounce, you want it to break past $802. If we break past that, we could turn back to bullish. As long as we're below 802, we are in a bit of a downtrend and we're still looking kind of weak. So overall, just to be frank with everyone, we look bearish on super micro, technically speaking. Whether we get a break depends on CPI, so I'll be watching just to be safe. But technicals do look more bearish right now on super micro, in my opinion. For Rivian, we're on a very, very nice uptrend. It does look to me like it's going to dip down to our 20 EMA again, test 11.5, then try to bounce. The trend is still bullish. If we lose 11.5, we could get a temporary pullback, but the structure is still bullish overall. If we lose 11.57, we'll be dipping all the way down to 11.18. If we hold this, we will rebound. But overall, I just want to say that look for a dip and a bounce as the most likely technical move, but it also depends on CPI. SoFi is exactly around the 7 area. If we get a good CPI and such, we'll be looking for 7.2. If not, we'll be looking for a rug pull all the way back down to 6.7. Overall, the structure does look a little bit more bullish as it's getting tighter, so we'll just have to give it some time. With IWM Russell 2000, I want to make it very, very clear that right now we have a nice looking gap to fill above. So it looks to me like it's going to try to bounce to fill this gap and go up to about at least 202 plus or higher. If we end up getting a rejection and losing the support around 200, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 198.5. So overall, we are looking more bullish on the IWM Russell 2000, but just to be safe, we will wait and see what we end up getting from the data. So overall, just to be very, very clear with everyone, it looks to me like the IWM wants to bounce, but just to be safe, we'll wait and see what CPI gives us. We're at support on AMD. How funny is that? We did dip a little bit below this structure, but we're still barely at 158. Like I said earlier, if we lose this, we're going to be looking for a big dip all the way down to at least 155 or lower. If we lose the support right here at 158 tomorrow, if we get a rebound thanks to CPI, we're going to be going back up to 164. We do look more bearish from a technical standpoint, but it also depends on CPI. For ARM is trying to uptrend, looking more bullish overall. It looks to me like it's going to try to push up to 148. If we're bullish, we'll be looking for a big push to 150. If we reject here, we'll be dipping back down to 137. Overall, the trend is more bullish. So it's still holding up very well. We'll have to give it some time, but I like what I'm seeing thus far. Coinbase is trying to rebound a bit. We also have a gap to fill just like the IWM. If we push higher, look for 250 plus. If we reject and lose 240, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 234. If that fails us, we're coming down to 230. Overall, guys, we're in the middle, but I just want to say that there is potential for a bounce on Coinbase to fill this gap. So I'll wait and see what happens with CPI. Amazon's bullish. The structure is bullish on Amazon. We're continuing to uptrend very nicely. There's potential for this to go all the way up towards 190, in my opinion. If we're bullish, 190 plus is coming. If we're bearish, we'll be dipping all the way down to 184, then 181. Technicals do suggest that we could be pushing for 190. We're actually holding above our 20 EMA nicely. If we lose the 20 EMA, if we lose 184.5, we turn bearish. As of right now, we're holding up, so we'll see. Meta is also looking more bullish as we're breaking out very nicely. I think that we could be pushing for about 510 in my personal opinion. If we break this, 515 is going to be our next target. If we reject off 510, we'll be dipping all the way back down towards 503. But overall, Meta is looking more bullish in my personal opinion. There's a good chance it may continue to push higher. So we will see what happens with the CPI report, but just know that right now Meta is looking bullish, and we need to see if this continues. For Microsoft is trying to push higher. We'll be looking for 435 to be tested. If that breaks, we could continue to break through our highs and start pushing up for 436 plus. If we're bearish and we get a rejection, you'll be looking for a test of right here. I'll be looking for about 430 to be retested, a big drop. Technicals look very bullish on Microsoft. It's holding up very well, but it is approaching some tough resistance. But overall, it's still looking very, very strong. We're getting good volume too. So Microsoft looks bullish to me, but it depends on CPI, of course. Just a few more. Google looks a little bit more bullish. Red resistance at 179. If we break this, look for 180. If we reject, we'll be coming back down to 177. Overall, looks a little bit more bullish. GameStop's trying to break out right now. If we hold above 30 tomorrow, we're going to be looking for a push for this imbalance. 38 could be coming soon, so we could get a rally on GameStop if we hold above 30 and our 20 EMA. So it does favor upside a bit more. Same thing with AMC. If we're more bullish, look for 5.5. It is favoring upside a bit more as well. UJT is rejected off and lost our 20 EMA. It's continuing to fall. Going to be looking for a test all the way down here around 37. This 37 area, so I do expect some more downside. The VIX overall is looking a bit more, I would say, bearish. It is kind of rejecting here, so we have this gap to fill, but at the same time, if we do want to break out towards and above our 20 to 200 EMA, then we could be pushing higher. So I'm still in the middle with the VIX. It depends on the data. The 10-year is going to make a crazy move tomorrow, depending on what Jerome Powell says. So we'll see what he says. And lastly, we have the dollar index. It's trying to break out right here, but we will see if we end up losing 105 and we close or lose our 20 EMA, or if we continue to break out. I'm kind of in the middle. The dollar does not solely determine everything that's happening to the markets. So we're going to wait for what the big reaction is tomorrow. With that being said, guys, thank you all so much for listening. The market is going to make an astronomical move tomorrow. Technicals for SPY, the QQQ, Amazon, and most of the big tech stocks out there are bullish. Some exceptions are there, like Tesla and the others, because of some bad news. But let me just be very, very blunt with everyone. Right now, the market remains bullish, at least from a technical standpoint. We will see if CPI helps this continue to push or not. If CPI is hot, we're going to get a rug pull, so I'll let you guys know what happens tomorrow. Until then, thank you all so much for listening. I hope you guys have an absolutely incredible rest of the day and you guys are ready for what's about to happen. The market's about to go bananas. It's about to go berserk. It's about to make crazy moves tomorrow. So don't forget, we have CPI coming up before the market opens, not to mention the FOMC meeting at 2 p.m. and then Jerome Powell giving a speech at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I can't wait to see what Jerome Powell has to say. And it's going to cause a massive, massive move in the markets. It's going to either pump things or cause a rug pull. So we will wait and see and be very, very patient. All right, guys. Thank you all for listening. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next one. Thanks, and peace out.